The kitchen clock flicked to 3:07 a.m., the hour when silence feels heavy enough to crush bones. The grills had died down, the dining hall was dark, and the entire restaurant smelled of old smoke and tired dreams. Maya Reed, the black night shift cook everyone forgot existed, wiped sweat from her forehead as the industrial smoker behind her let out another warning hiss. It was the kind of sound that made a person's heart stop, sharp, metallic, like a fuse burning toward something terrible. She flinched but did not step back. She couldn't. If she didn't finish the ribs before sunrise, she'd lose her job, and losing this job meant losing the apartment she barely kept, the medication her mother needed, and the school lunches for her little sister. She glanced at the empty kitchen. One person, one set of hands, one woman doing the work meant for three. And the equipment? Half broken, half dying, all dangerous. Management called it resourceful workflow restructuring. The workers called it trying not to die tonight. Another hiss. Another spark. Maya grabbed the soaked towel she kept by the counter like a lifeline. She wrapped her hand and adjusted the valve without hesitation. The air stung her eyes. She coughed, chest tight, but forced herself steady. She had reported this smoker 11 times. 11 times she had written, photographed, begged. Every request came back the same. Deferred. Non-critical. Continue operations. The man who sent those replies, her regional manager, Mr. Dalton, liked to call her overly dramatic. Once, he'd even laughed and said, "You black cooks think everything is a crisis. Just work." That sentence lived in her memory like a bruise. But tonight, someone else was watching her from the shadows outside. Someone she didn't know. Someone she never expected. Julian Hart, billionaire owner of Heartstone Dining Group, leaned against his black SUV with the engine running, his face dimly lit by the dashboard glow. He wasn't wearing a suit. No cameras, no entourage. Just dark jeans, an old cap, and the guilt of a man who built an empire too large to see the ground anymore. In his hand was the anonymous email he'd received at midnight. "I'm scared. No one listens. Someone already got hurt. Please, you're my last option." 52 executives had ignored it. He hadn't. Through the foggy side window, he saw Maya moving with the precision of someone who had learned to survive equipment that wanted to kill her. She kept the fire extinguisher within reach, the wet towels arranged like armor, and her body angled just enough to escape a sudden blast. Not the way a cook works. The way a soldier works. Julian's stomach twisted. Something was wrong. Painfully, dangerously wrong. He stepped out of the car, the humid night pressing against him, and approached the back entrance. The sharp smell hit him before he reached the door. Smoke, grease, and faint gas. He knocked gently. Maya turned, surprised for only a second before exhaustion settled back into her face. "We already had inspection last month," she said through the crack of the door. "Everything passed. What do you want?" Julian kept his voice steady. "Follow-up review. Company request. Won't take long." She hesitated, not out of trust but fatigue, then opened the door wider. "Fine. Just don't get in my way. Some of this stuff might blow if you breathe on it wrong." The kitchen swallowed him. It looked worse from the inside. A fryer patched with duct tape. A cracked ventilation hood. A cooler door that didn't seal. And the monster of a smoker trembling like it carried ghosts. Julian took in every detail without revealing his name. He wasn't here as the billionaire tonight. He was here as a man who needed to understand why one cook wrote him a message at midnight saying she feared going to work. Maya didn't smile. She didn't welcome him. She worked like someone who'd been abandoned too many times to expect help. "If you're checking anything," she said, "start with that." She pointed at the smoker. "It's supposed to shut down if it overheats, but the safety lock failed months ago. Now it just argues with fire." She wasn't joking. Julian wished she were. "How many people work the night shift?" he asked. Her laugh was quiet, bitter. "Used to be 4. Then 3. Then 2. Tonight? Me. Alone. Always alone." "And your manager?" he pushed. Maya didn't look up. "He says it's budget optimization. But he doesn't stay past 7 p.m., so what does he care?" The smoker made a loud clank. Julian stepped back instinctively. Maya didn't move. She grabbed a metal rod, banged the side twice, listened to the echo, then adjusted another valve. He stared. This wasn't cooking. This was survival with seasoning. "How long has this been happening?" he asked softly. She paused. "A year," she whispered. "Maybe more." Someone already collapsed from fumes last winter. They called it employee negligence. She swallowed hard. I know the truth. We all do. She turned away, blinking fast. Julian felt something inside him fracture, a guilt he didn't know he was carrying. Because this was his company, his restaurant, his responsibility, and he had never seen any of it. He exhaled slowly. Can I ask, why did you send that email? Maya froze. Her hands tightened around the tongs. I didn't send anything, she said quickly. But her eyes told the truth. Julian lowered his gaze. I came because someone asked for help, he said quietly. And because this place, he glanced at the shaking smoker, is a danger to you. For the first time, Maya really looked at him. Not like an inspector, not like management, like a stranger who might actually care. But exhaustion smothered the moment. Look, she whispered, help never stays. People show up, say the right things, then disappear when it gets messy. So if you're just here to check a box, please don't waste my time. I'm trying to not die tonight. Julian's jaw tightened. She didn't know who he was, but she had just told him the truth no boardroom ever dared to say. And the worst part? She wasn't wrong. He took a step toward her. Maya, I promise you, I'm not leaving this as it is. She didn't answer. She turned back to the smoker, ready to fight another burst of flame. Julian watched her, alone, exhausted, brave, and treated as disposable, and felt something shift inside him. Tomorrow, he would return. Not as an inspector, not as a billionaire, not as a silent owner, but as a man going undercover to find every lie buried in this kitchen. And when the truth came out, instant karma would follow. Hard, public, and irreversible. He stepped out into the night, leaving the smell of smoke behind, and taking the weight of Maya's unspoken plea with him. Julian barely slept when he reached home. The image of Maya standing alone in that smoke-choked kitchen repeated in his mind like a broken record. Her tired eyes, her scorched towel, the way she had stood between danger and survival as if both belonged to her. He had built an empire, but he had never seen the foundation this closely. The cracks, the exhaustion, the fear. And now that he had seen it, he couldn't turn away. By noon the next day, Julian made a decision that even his board wouldn't understand. He was going back, but not as Julian Hart, not as the billionaire, not as the owner. He would become someone invisible. He shaved his beard, wore old jeans and a wrinkled gray t-shirt, removed his smartwatch, and slipped on thick-rimmed glasses that weren't even prescription. When he looked at himself in the mirror, he didn't see the man in magazines, the man on food industry panels, or the CEO who shook hands with governors. He looked like someone who could wash dishes and no one would ever notice. Perfect. He used an old ID from years ago, changed the name, printed a fresh badge, and showed up at the HR office of his own company as Evan Hill, temporary night dishwasher. No one questioned it. No one recognized him. No one even looked at him twice. Funny how the world treats you differently when money isn't written on your face. At 9:55 p.m., Julian, now Evan, walked through the back door of the restaurant. The night smelled of burnt spices and stubborn grease. The kitchen was quieter than the day, but the tension hung in the air like heavy fog. Darius, the night shift dishwasher, looked up first. Big shoulders, soft eyes, hands weathered from years of scrubbing metal until his knuckles bled. You the temp. His voice was deep, tired. Julian nodded. Evan, first night. You ever dished before? Not in a long time. Darius snorted a laugh. Doesn't matter. If you survive the first 2 hours, you'll do fine. Grab an apron. Julian tied the apron around his waist and stepped into the dish pit. The sink was enormous, steam rising like a cloud. The floor was slick with oil that had seeped into the tile over months. Every step felt like walking on ice. How long's it been like this? Julian asked. Darius shrugged. Years. They keep promising new flooring. Never happens. And maintenance? Another shrug. Denied. Everything's denied. That word echoed in Julian's chest like thunder. Denied. Just like Maya's paperwork. Just like countless warnings no one took seriously. At 10:15 p.m., Maya walked in through the back door, tying her apron tighter than usual. Exhaustion lined her face, but so did determination, that quiet strength she carried like a secret. She froze for half a second when she saw Julian. Recognition flickered, but she said nothing. He had changed his appearance well enough, but Maya had an instinct, the kind of instinct people develop when life forces them to notice everything. Still, She didn't question him. New guy? She asked, grabbing gloves. Yeah, Julian said. Evan. Good. Darius needs help. Her tone was flat, but not unkind. Julian watched her move around the kitchen, controlled, precise, almost rehearsed in her caution. She worked like someone who had learned to read danger faster than most people read words. The fryer hissed, the smoker rumbling its constant threat. This place is a hazard, Julian murmured. Darius didn't argue. You don't know the half of it. A loud bang cut through the air. The smoker spat a burst of flame 2 feet high. Julian stumbled back. Maya didn't. She moved forward, calm and sure, turning off the gas feed with practiced hands. The flame died instantly, leaving a smell of burning metal and fear. Julian stared. You aren't scared? Maya didn't look at him. I'm scared every night. But fear doesn't pay bills. Her words hit him harder than any flame could. Darius stepped beside them. She's the only reason none of us are dead. Maya shook her head. Don't exaggerate. You're the only reason, Darius insisted, then returned to the dish pit. Julian watched Maya for a moment. She wasn't just competent. She was carrying this entire place on her back. Every shift she survived was a miracle. Why doesn't management fix any of this? Julian asked. Maya's jaw tightened. We've been asking for months. Our manager says corporate denied everything. Julian felt cold. Corporate didn't deny anything. He had never seen a single request. Someone was filtering them. Someone with power. At 11:40 p.m., Maya opened her locker to take out a notebook so worn it looked like it had survived a war. Julian watched from a distance as she flipped through pages filled with handwritten reports, photos, dates, signatures, and notes. The documentation of a woman fighting alone. He couldn't stay silent anymore. You keep all that? He asked gently. Maya closed the notebook immediately. Her voice was guarded. You asking a lot for a dishwasher. He swallowed hard. Just trying to understand. You won't, she said softly. This place only makes sense if you've been ignored long enough. Something heavy flickered in her eyes. Resentment, fatigue, grief. Julian lowered his gaze. Not because he was guilty of ignoring her himself, but because he knew he had been distant from reality too long. At 12:10 a.m., the fryer made a strange popping noise. Maya tensed instantly. Darius stepped away. Julian didn't understand what was happening until Maya reached for a fire extinguisher. Move, she warned. Another pop. Another spark. Julian felt his heart climb into his throat. Does it do this often? He asked. 3 times this week. And no one fixes it. Maya gave a small laugh. One time our manager told us to shake it gently and ignore the noise. Julian felt anger coil inside him like a spring. Not just anger for the broken machines. Not just anger for the lies. But anger because he had allowed distance, privilege, comfort, power to blind him to what was happening under his own name. At 12:40 a.m., they all took a short break. Julian sat on an overturned milk crate, pretending to rest, but his mind was racing. Maya leaned against the wall, sipping water like someone who had fought all day and still had hours left to survive. You look troubled, she said quietly. Julian hesitated. Maya, last night, you said people come, say the right things, then disappear. Why do you think that? She looked at him with eyes that carried whole histories of disappointment. Because when you're the person at the bottom, nobody sees you unless something explodes. A beat. And sometimes, not even then. Julian swallowed. That must feel terrible. It is terrible, she whispered. But what choice do we have? This job is all some of us got. Some nights, I'm just trying to make sure I go home alive. Her words pulled the air out of his lungs. He couldn't tell her who he was. Not yet. But he wanted to promise her the world. Instead, he said the only truth he could speak. You shouldn't have to live like this. She stared at him for a long, still moment, as if searching his face for something honest. Then she nodded once. Then help us. Those 3 words hit him like a blow. Because she didn't know it. But he was about to change her entire world. Quietly. Secretly. Completely. Julian stood, wiped his hands, and returned to work. Tonight, he was invisible. But tomorrow, he would bring daylight into this darkness. And those who had ignored Maya's warnings would learn what justice looked like when truth finally found a voice. By the 3rd night, Julian understood more about the restaurant than he had in the 3 years he owned it. Problems didn't hide in daylight. They hid in the hours when no one cared enough to look. The walls smelled of burnt oil. The vents rattled like they were breathing their last breath. The smoker coughed heat like a monster chained too tight. And Maya worked like someone trying to outrun fate. At 10:58 p.m., she walked in carrying a thermos and a quiet storm behind her eyes. She nodded at Darius, then at Julian, though her eyes lingered 1 second longer on him, as if trying to understand who Evan really was. "You're early," she said without looking at him again. "Couldn't sleep," Julian answered, tying his apron. "Then you fit right in." She walked past him toward the prep table. That night, something felt heavier. Maya's shoulders were tense, her steps sharper than usual. Julian noticed instantly. "You okay?" he asked casually. "I'm fine." But her voice cracked a little. He didn't push, not yet. He had learned that people living in survival mode didn't open up just because someone asked nicely. They opened up when they felt seen. At 11:15, the fryer popped again, louder this time. Darius shut it off quickly and sighed, wiping his face with a rag. "That thing's gonna go," he muttered. "It's been going," Maya replied. "We're just lucky it hasn't taken the kitchen with it." Julian glanced around, making sure no cameras were pointed toward them. There weren't any. The budget cuts had removed half the surveillance months ago. He lowered his voice. "Has your manager been here this week?" Maya's reaction was small, but unmistakable. A stiff inhale. A pause too long. "Why?" she asked carefully. "I've never seen him at night," Julian replied. "Does he ever check the equipment?" Maya stared at the smoker, her jaw tightening. "He checks the reports," she said. "That's all that matters to him. He comes in." "No," she scoffed bitterly. "He sends emails. That's his version of showing up." Julian felt the anger rising again. A manager who never checked the kitchen? Never saw the danger? Never met the workers? That wasn't a manager. That was a ghost holding a clipboard. At midnight, the sounds of the kitchen settled into a rhythm. The clatter of pans, the soft hum of the fridge, the low rumble of the smoker. There was a strange comfort in that rhythm, like a broken lullaby the workers had learned to endure. But tonight, there was a crack in it. The smoker gave an off-tune growl, a sound Julian hadn't heard before. A sound deeper, heavier, like metal grinding against bone. Maya heard it too. She froze. Her eyes shot toward the machine. "Darius," she whispered. "Turn the fans on now." Darius moved instantly. Julian stepped back. He felt the hairs on his arms rise. "What's happening?" he asked. Maya didn't answer. She grabbed a long metal rod and approached the smoker cautiously, tapping the side panel. The sound came again, a deep grinding, followed by a high hiss. Maya cursed under her breath. "It's the internal valve. It's slipping again." "Again?" Julian echoed. "3 times this month. I put in a request. They marked it non-urgent." Non-urgent. A valve that could explode. Non-urgent. Julian felt sick. "Step back," Maya warned him. She twisted the side handle with a soaked towel, holding her breath as the machine hissed. After a moment, the pressure needle dropped slightly. Darius exhaled. "You good?" "Good enough," Maya answered, though her voice trembled. Julian approached her slowly. "Maya, this is dangerous." She turned to him, eyes sharp and exhausted. "What do you want me to do, Evan?" "Walk out." She shook her head. "I don't get that luxury. Some of us don't." The words hit him like a blow. He opened his mouth to respond, but they were interrupted by the sound of the back door opening. Footsteps. Heavy. Fast. Julian turned. A tall man in a pressed shirt and expensive shoes walked in like he owned the oxygen in the room. Mr. Dalton, the manager. The reason Maya had 11 denied reports. The reason she feared this place more than she feared failure. Dalton didn't look at Julian. Didn't look at Darius. He walked straight to Maya like a storm aimed at one person. "You," he snapped. "My office. Now." Maya stiffened. Julian felt something cold unfurl in his chest. Dalton looked around the kitchen, nose wrinkling in disgust. "This is unacceptable," he barked. "The fryer's off. The smoker's open. Why is nothing running?" "Safety issue," Maya said carefully. "The valve slipped. We shut things down so it wouldn't." "So it wouldn't what?" Dalton cut her off. "Waste time? Lose product? We have quotas." Julian stepped forward before he could think. "She prevented an accident," he said. Dalton turned slowly toward him, eyes narrowing. "And who the hell are you?" Julian kept his voice steady. "Evan. Dishwasher." Dalton smirked. "Then wash dishes and stay out of things you don't understand." Julian clenched his fists. Hard. But he stayed quiet. "For now." Dalton turned back to Maya. You've been sending too many reports, he said. Corporate thinks you're exaggerating. Exaggerating. Maya echoed, incredulous. You've denied every single request I filed. Because they weren't necessary. The equipment is dangerous. Dalton leaned close, voice lowering. You keep pushing this and I'll cut your hours. Or cut you completely. Understood. Julian snapped. His voice wasn't loud, but sharp enough to slice through the air. That's retaliation. Dalton turned again. Excuse me. Julian stepped forward, eyes locked on Dalton. When an employee reports danger and you threaten them, that's retaliation. It's illegal. Dalton laughed. Listen to me, dishwasher. I've been running this place for years. I decide what's dangerous. Not her. Not you. Maya grabbed Julian's arm, subtle, firm. Evan, she whispered, drop it. But Julian wasn't backing down. This kitchen is a risk, he said. And you know it. Dalton's eyes hardened. You're new. Consider this a free warning. One more word, and I'll make sure you never work a shift in this district again. Julian didn't flinch. Dalton pointed at Maya. You. Office. Now. She hesitated, just a second, and Dalton's voice turned venomous. Now. Maya walked toward the office slowly, shoulders stiff. Julian watched, helpless anger building inside him like wildfire. Darius whispered, let it go, man. Don't get fired before you understand how deep this goes. But Julian understood enough. Dalton wasn't just negligent. He was abusive, manipulative, a man who ruled through fear, not leadership. Julian waited in the kitchen with Darius, pretending to wash dishes, but every sound from the office made him tense. After 10 long minutes, Maya emerged. Her eyes were red, her jaw trembling. She walked straight to the prep table, picked up her knife, and continued working as if nothing had happened. Are you okay? Julian asked softly. She didn't look up. It's normal, she whispered. He yells. He threatens. We deal with it. Then she added, voice breaking. He said if I file one more report, he'll fire me just before rent is due. He knows exactly what he's doing. Julian felt something inside him snap in two. This wasn't mismanagement. This wasn't incompetence. This was cruelty with purpose. And he was done watching quietly. Because tonight, Julian wasn't just the dishwasher. He wasn't even the owner. He was a witness. A witness to rot. A witness to lies. A witness to the suffering his own name had been used to inflict. And when light finally hit these shadows, Dalton wouldn't survive the truth. Julian barely noticed the sting of dishwater on his hands anymore. The soap burned his skin, but his mind was burning hotter. Every moment replayed itself. Dalton's threats, Maya's trembling breath, the way she had folded herself small just to survive another night. This wasn't negligence. This was a system built to break people who had no option but to stay. At 1:12 a.m., the kitchen fell into a tense quiet. Dalton had left, slamming the back door behind him like he wanted dented metal to feel his power. The sound echoed for seconds after he was gone. Maya kept working, not because she wanted to, but because she had to. Her hands moved fast, slicing ribs, seasoning trays, preparing the smoker again even though it had already threatened to explode twice that shift. Julian moved closer, lowering his voice. Maya, what did he say to you? She didn't look up. It doesn't matter. It does. A long silence followed. Then she whispered, he said I'm replaceable. Julian felt anger rise like fire in his chest. He said if I file one more report or cry wolf again, she continued, he'll fire me at the end of the week so I can't make rent. He knows my sister depends on me. He knows I can't afford even one day without pay. She swallowed hard. And the worst part? He's right. I can't afford to lose this job. Not even the dangerous, humiliating version of it. Julian clenched his jaw so hard it hurt. This is my company. And she believes she has no power because I never gave her any. The realization hit him like a blow. Suddenly, a loud metallic snap cut through the silence. Crack, ping. A bolt shot off the side of the smoker, ricocheting off the wall. Maya ducked instinctively. Julian dropped behind the prep counter. Darius shouted and threw a wet towel over his head. Smoke poured from the smoker. Thick, black, choking. Maya rushed forward. No. Julian grabbed her arm, but she pulled free. If I don't shut it down, it'll blow, she yelled. She wrapped another soaked towel around her hand, opened the side valve, and turned the release knob. Smoke poured out even faster. The kitchen filled with heat. Julian watched helplessly as she risked her life for the 100th time in silence and darkness. Finally, blessedly, the needle dropped. The machine quieted. The smoke thinned. Maya leaned against the counter, coughing hard. Julian ran to her side. "You could have been seriously hurt." She wiped her eyes. "That's every night. That's why I sent that email." Her voice trailed off, because she had said too much. Julian froze. So she had sent it. "I knew it," he whispered. "You asked for help." "For all the good it did," she muttered. "You're here washing dishes. Meanwhile, nothing changes." "You'd be surprised," Julian said quietly. She looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time since he arrived undercover. Something in her eyes softened. Something recognized the conviction in his voice. But the moment passed. Darius stumbled out of the dish pit, coughing. "That smoker's a death trap," he wheezed. "Someone's got to fix it before." Before he finished, a harsh alarm pierced the air. Beep, 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 beep. The CO detector on the wall flickered red. Maya's face drained of color. "Everyone out," she yelled. "Now." She grabbed Darius's hand and pushed him toward the exit. Julian followed, but she turned back, toward the smoker. "Maya," Julian shouted. "Leave it." "I need to switch off the main gas," she shouted back. "No. It's too dangerous. It's more dangerous if I don't." Julian lunged forward, grabbing her wrist. This time, she didn't pull away. "What are you doing?" she demanded. He held her gaze. Something in his eyes, a depth, a certainty, made her freeze. "I'm not letting you die tonight," he said. "Not for a job that doesn't value you." She blinked, stunned. For one heartbeat, the world fell silent around them. Then she nodded. Just once. Together, they ran to the utility box near the smoker. Maya flipped the emergency shutoff. The machine groaned, hissed, then fell silent. The CO alarm gradually quieted. The air cleared. Outside the back door, Darius was bent over, breathing hard. "Y'all all right?" he asked. "Somehow," Maya said, pressing a hand to her chest. Julian's heart was still pounding. Darius shook his head. "This place gonna kill someone one day," Maya whispered. "It already almost did." "Almost?" Julian caught the subtle shift in her tone. "What do you mean almost?" he asked. Maya exchanged a look with Darius, a look filled with buried truth, fear, and memory. Darius exhaled heavily. "It's time he knows." Julian stepped forward. "Knows what?" Maya swallowed. "Someone got hurt here, long before any of this. Before I took night shift." Julian's breath caught. "A man named Carter," Darius said quietly. "Worked here 10 years. Calm, hardworking. Everyone respected him. He passed out from fumes one night. Hit his head on the prep table." Julian felt cold run down his spine. "He survived?" he asked. "No," Maya whispered. "He never woke up." She looked away, tears gathering in her eyes but refusing to fall. "Management said it was his fault," she said bitterly. "Said he ignored procedures. Said he wasn't careful." "But that wasn't true," Darius finished. Maya nodded. "We saw the real report. Faulty ventilation. Gas leak. Same smoker. Same shift. Same everything." Julian's heart broke. "And they covered it up?" he asked softly. Maya nodded again. "They scrubbed everything. Erased every trace. Because shutting the store down would cost money." Julian leaned against the wall, breath unsteady. A man had died under his company's name, and he had never known. Maya sank onto a crate, shaking. "I kept thinking," she whispered. "If I documented everything, maybe someone would listen before it happened again." Julian sat beside her, voice trembling. "Someone is listening." She stared at him, confused, searching. But he couldn't tell her yet. Not until he had everything he needed. Instead, he said, "I swear to you, Maya, this ends soon. Very soon." She blinked hard, as if she wanted to believe him but had forgotten how belief felt. Inside, Julian made a promise. Not as Evan the dishwasher, but as Julian Hart, the owner. He would burn down every lie, expose every cover-up, and rebuild this place from the ashes. Whatever it cost him. Because tonight was the first time Maya Reed, a woman fighting alone, finally said out loud the truth she had carried in silence. And truth has a way of rewriting everything. The next evening, the sky above the city glowed a dull orange, like the world itself was tired. Julian sat in his car across the street from the restaurant, fingers resting on his phone, screen lit with names that had once meant structure and trust. Rachel Lynn, his CFO, legal department, external safety consultant. He had spent the entire day combing through digital records from home, using access most people didn't know he had. The pattern was clear now, painted in denials and missing files. Maya's safety reports, written, time-stamped, rerouted. Maintenance requests, edited. Incident logs from the night Carter died, archived under a wrong code, buried 3 folders deep. Dalton wasn't just lazy. He was actively erasing evidence. Julian's thumb hovered over Rachel's name. He could call her and end this from the top. But he wasn't done seeing for himself. Not yet. He needed the people who risked their lives here to see how seriously he was taking this. He needed Maya to know that for once, when she cried for help, someone powerful didn't run. At 10:50 p.m., he stepped out of the car, wearing the same worn clothes as Evan. The same disguise. The same invisibility that had let him see the truth. Inside, the night shift was just assembling. Darius was already at the dish pit, sleeves rolled up. Maya stood at the prep counter, knife flashing through slabs of meat, her movements quick but distant, like her mind was somewhere else. She looked up when Julian entered. "You're back," she said softly. "Wasn't planning on leaving," he replied. Something like relief flickered across her face, so brief, he almost missed it. "Good," she muttered. "We could use someone who doesn't freak out when things start rattling." Darius snorted. "He freaks out on the inside. I can tell." Julian smiled faintly, but his chest was heavy. Tonight was different. Tonight would spin the story forward, toward a point where there would be no going back. At 11:20 p.m., they settled into the familiar routine. Sizzle of meat, clatter of pans, hum of fridge. The smoker grumbled, but more quietly after Maya's emergency shutoff the night before. Still unsafe. Just temporarily calmed. Julian leaned closer as she checked the temperature. "They didn't send anyone to inspect this?" he asked. "Of course not," she replied. "Dalton said if I kept pushing I could look for work somewhere else. So I stopped pushing on paper." She tapped the pocket of her apron. "But not here." "Not here" meant the notebook. The folder. The photos. The real record no one could delete. They worked in silence for a while until Julian finally said the words he'd been holding back. "Maya, I need to ask you for something." She didn't look up. "Unless it's my winning lottery ticket. Not sure I got much left to give." "I need to see your documentation," he said. "All of it. The pictures. The reports. Everything you've saved that they tried to ignore." She went still. The knives, the sizzling, even the rumbling smoker felt quieter. "Why?" she asked. "Because," he said slowly, "if you have what I think you have, it's enough to bury him. And anyone above him who helped." Her eyes snapped to his. "You talk like someone who can actually do something." He met her gaze head on. "Maybe I can." She studied him. Not the apron, not the glasses, not the worn shoes. His eyes. The way he stood. The way he spoke like he wasn't scared of anyone above Dalton. "Who are you really?" she whispered. The air between them tightened. Darius looked up from the dish pit, sensing the shift. Julian inhaled. He had planned to wait. To gather more. To build his case in silence. But Maya deserved the truth. Not later. Now. He took off his glasses and set them on the counter. "I'm Julian," he said quietly. "Julian Hart." Maya stared at him. For a second, nothing connected. Then everything did at once. "The Julian Hart?" she whispered. "The owner. Of Heartstone." He nodded. Darius dropped a plate into the sink with a crash and just stared. "You're kidding." Julian shook his head. "I came as Evan because emails and reports weren't telling me the truth." "You were." Maya's jaw tightened, anger and betrayal rising together. "So you've been spying?" she snapped. "Listening," he corrected. "Because no one at the top was listening before. Not to you. Not to Carter. Not to anyone down here. And now you suddenly care?" she demanded, stepping away from him. "Now that you've seen it in person?" "Now that I've seen what someone did using my name," he answered, voice low but steady. "Yes, I care. And I'm not leaving this place like this." The anger in her eyes flickered, fought, then tangled with something else. Hurt, exhaustion, a fragile hope she was terrified to touch. "You have no idea what it's like," she said. "To scream into forms and emails and watch them vanish. To be told you're dramatic, lazy, ungrateful. To see someone die and hear them say it was his fault for breathing wrong." Julian stepped closer, his voice shaking now. "You're right. I didn't know. That's on me. But I know now. And I swear to you, Maya, if you show me what you've saved, I will not let them erase you again." Silence. Then, slowly, She reached into her apron and pulled out a small key. "This doesn't leave my hands," she said. "I understand." She walked to her locker, opened it, and retrieved a thick, battered folder and a notebook more important than any contract Julian had ever signed. She laid them on the prep table. "Here," she said. "This is everything." He opened the folder gently, as if it were something sacred. Inside, photos of cracked gas lines, emails printed with timestamps and cold replies, screenshots of denied, deferred, not approved stamped across critical requests, incident notes in her careful handwriting, a copy of the report from the night Carter died, the early version still marked with preventable before someone changed the final conclusion. Julian's throat tightened. "This is a case file," he murmured. "You built this like an investigator." "I built it like a woman who didn't want to die quietly," Maya replied. "If something happened to me, I wanted proof it wasn't an accident." Darius moved closer, eyes on the folder. "That's not just evidence for you," he said to Julian. "That's our whole story. Years of being ignored." Julian nodded, taking photo after photo of each page with his phone. "Good," he said. "Because tomorrow, this story isn't staying in the dark." Maya crossed her arms. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "You fire Dalton, they'll replace him with another version of him. They'll give us a nice speech about safety and then forget we exist again." He looked up at her, something fierce in his eyes now. "I'm not firing a man and keeping the system that enabled him," he said. "I'm tearing down the system. Publicly. Permanently." "Those are big words," she said carefully. "Then watch me match them." He stepped back, already forming the plan out loud. "Tomorrow morning, I call Rachel, my CFO. She's honest. She doesn't play with safety numbers. I get her on this. We freeze all deletions and edits in the maintenance system. We lock Dalton out. I pull his emails with upper management. If anyone helped him bury reports, they go too." He swiped through the photos again. "Then," he continued, "I call an emergency staff meeting here. Not in a boardroom. In this kitchen. I want every worker to hear the truth first. I want Dalton standing in front of the people he endangered when I confront him." Maya's eyes widened. "You're going to confront him here? Where he felt untouchable," Julian said. "He used this kitchen as a weapon. He can face justice in the same room he ignored you in." Darius blinked. "And what about Carter?" he asked quietly. Julian's voice softened. "We say his name," he said. "Out loud. In front of everyone. We admit what happened. No more calling him an incident on paper. He was a man who should still be alive." The silence that followed was thick and holy. For the first time, Maya looked at Julian not as an intruder, or an owner, or a liar in disguise, but as someone who might, just might, actually keep a promise. "This is going to get ugly," she warned. "Dalton will lie. He'll try to flip it on us. Say we're incompetent. Say we ignored procedure. Then we counter with documentation," Julian replied, tapping the folder. "Yours. Mine. And I'm not coming alone." "You're bringing lawyers?" Darius asked. "I'm bringing more than that," Julian said. "I'm bringing the one thing this place has never had at 3 a.m. "What's that?" Maya whispered. "Witnesses," he answered. He put the glasses back on, not to hide now, but out of habit. The decision had been made. There was no going back. "Can I count on you too?" he asked softly. "To stand with me when this breaks?" Maya looked at her notebook, at the folder, at the smoker that had nearly killed her. Then she straightened, shoulders no longer curled inward. "Yes," she said, "but not because I trust your position. Because I trust what I've seen from you this week." Darius nodded. "I'm in. Somebody's got to tell Carter's story." Julian exhaled slowly. "Then tomorrow," he said, "we stop surviving and start changing the rules." They went back to work, the kitchen now holding a different kind of energy. The danger was still there, the rattling equipment, the slick floors, the hum of broken systems. But now there was something else too. A line drawn, a plan forming, a promise hanging in the air. For the first time, Maya didn't feel completely alone in that kitchen at 3 a.m. Someone with power had finally stepped into the smoke and refused to look away. Tomorrow would be the day the truth stepped out of the shadows. And the people who thought nobody was watching would learn otherwise. Sunrise had never looked so sharp. The sky leaned gold over the city as Julian walked into the restaurant in a crisp suit. Not Evan. Not the invisible dishwasher. Not the quiet observer. Today he walked in as Julian Hart, owner, CEO, and the man who had come to pull the truth into the light. The night before, he had sent a single message to his CFO, Rachel, with photos of Maya's entire evidence folder. The response had been immediate and shaken. Julian, this is criminal. I'll be there in 30 minutes. By dawn, Rachel had already traced every safety denial back to Dalton. She uncovered altered reports, missing documents, and falsified inspection entries. Worst of all, she found internal emails between Dalton and two higher-level managers discussing profitable closure plans. It meant one thing. This wasn't just a bad manager. This was a chain of corruption. And today, all of it would break. The all-staff meeting. By 7 a.m., the restaurant was filled. Workers from every shift gathered in the dining area. The night crew, the day crew, even a few off-duty employees who came because rumors had spread like wildfire. Maya stood beside Darius, holding her notebook tightly. She looked exhausted but unshakable. Julian stepped into the center. Conversations fell silent in waves. Dalton arrived last, confused and irritated. "What is this?" he barked. "I didn't authorize a meeting." "You don't need to authorize anything today," Julian said calmly. "I did." Dalton blinked, then froze. "Mr. Hart," he stammered. What are you?" "Take a seat," Julian said. His tone held no room for argument. Dalton sat, stiff and pale. Rachel stepped forward with a stack of printed reports. Her face was set in a cold, professional fury. Julian began. 2 weeks ago, I received an anonymous email claiming there was dangerous equipment here. That employees were ignored. That someone feared for their life." He paused. "That email came from one of you." Maya stiffened. Julian continued. "And I came undercover to see for myself." Gasps echoed through the room. Dalton looked like his soul tried to escape through his shoes. "Everything I saw confirmed the message," Julian said. "This place is a ticking bomb. One management has ignored. Equipment failures, gas leaks, nearly fatal malfunctions, everything documented, everything dismissed." Maya closed her eyes, emotion trembling in her breath. Julian held up her notebook. "This," he said, "is the real truth of this store. A year of warnings. A year of denied requests. A year of a woman carrying the weight of a safety system that was supposed to protect her." He opened to a page. Maya reported a failing valve. Dalton denied it. Another page. Maya reported a gas leak. Denied. Another. Maya reported malfunctioning CO detectors. Denied. Murmurs rose. Workers looked at each other with anger and disbelief. Then Julian lifted a single sheet. Older, weathered. "This is the incident report from the night Carter Johnson collapsed." Dalton's entire face drained of color. Julian read. "Cause: CO exposure due to faulty ventilation. Equipment replacement required immediately. Risk of recurrence high." He let the words hang in the air. This report was buried. Altered. Rewritten to say employee negligence. And the man who buried it is sitting right here. The room erupted with outrage. "You lied about Carter? He could still be here. You blamed him. You let us work the same shift." Dalton stood abruptly. "This is absurd. That report isn't accurate." Rachel stepped beside him. "You forged inspection data, Dalton. You deleted safety logs. You rerouted requests. You altered state filings. We found your digital fingerprints on every edit." Dalton swallowed hard. That's not. I was told to." "Oh, you were," Rachel said sharply. "And we found those emails too." She lifted printed copies. Messages between Dalton and a senior manager discussing closing the store for profit while ignoring hazards. "You endangered lives for a closure bonus," Julian said quietly. "You let a man die, and then you put Maya in the same position." Maya's breath trembled. Julian turned toward her. "You deserve protection, not threats, not silence." He faced the room again. And today begins the part where that changes. The instant karma. Julian stepped closer to Dalton. "Dalton Morrison," he said clearly. "You are terminated effective immediately." Dalton shook, sweat beading on his forehead. You can't." "I already did." "Security?" 2 guards stepped inside. Dalton stumbled back, frantic. "This is a mistake." She exaggerated. She lied. She wanted attention. Julian slammed a folder onto the table so hard Dalton flinched. "Maya kept you alive," Julian snapped. "If she hadn't acted every night, there would be more injuries. More deaths." Dalton's face twisted with desperation. She's just a cook." "No," Julian said sharply. "She's the reason half this staff is still breathing." The workers erupted into applause so loud the walls seemed to vibrate. Dalton was escorted out, shouting empty threats until the door slammed behind him. Instant karma delivered. The justice. Julian faced the staff. Effective today, he announced, this location will undergo full renovation. Every piece of equipment will be inspected, replaced, or upgraded. Every worker will receive training, protection, and hazard pay during the transition. A wave of stunned silence swept across the room. And during the investigation, no one loses a job. No one loses pay. Maya stared at him, not with suspicion, not with anger, but with the first spark of belief. Julian took a breath. I want to make something else clear, he said. I failed you. I didn't see what was happening down here, and that's on me. But I promise you, this is the last time anyone in this company suffers in silence. Workers nodded slowly, some wiping tears, some clenching their fists in relief. Then Julian turned to Maya. And this is the woman who stood up for all of you when no one listened, he said. She documented the truth. She risked her job. She stopped explosions. She kept people alive. Maya looked away, overwhelmed. So today, Julian said, I'm offering her a new position. Maya's head snapped up. Head of Worker Safety and Advocacy, with full authority to shut down any equipment. Direct reporting line to me. Higher pay, full benefits, and the power to prevent what happened to Carter from ever happening again. The room exploded with cheers, applause rising like a wave. Maya's hand went to her mouth, tears brimming. Her entire life had taught her to expect punishment for speaking up, not reward. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Julian stepped closer. Say yes, he said softly, and help me rebuild this place the way it should have been from the start. She exhaled shakily. Yes, she said. 1,000 times yes. The staff surged forward, hugging her, thanking her, holding her hands. Darius wiped his eyes and muttered, about damn time. The closure. After the meeting, Julian stood in the quiet kitchen with Maya. The smoker sat cold, finally silent after years of threatening lives. Maya touched it gently. Carter didn't get justice while he was alive, she whispered. But today we finally said his name. Julian nodded. We'll honor him, not by hiding what happened, but by making sure it never happens again. Maya looked at him then, really looked, with gratitude, strength, and a courage she'd had long before he ever stepped into her world. You kept your promise, she said quietly. Julian smiled. You gave me the truth. I just followed where it led. They stood together, in a kitchen that would soon transform into something safer, brighter, and worthy of the workers who carried it. And for the first time since Carter died, the restaurant felt like it could breathe again.